This is the June 18th, 2024 Pendleton Board of Zoning Appeals called to order. I'll do a roll call starting to my left.
Robert Jones.
Kyle Eichhorn.
Jenny Sisson.
And Rob is on Zoom.
Rob Williams.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. We have a quorum. There are minutes of the previous meeting on your drive. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 21st meeting.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, V 05/21/2024 findings of fact 450 Old State Road 132.
Yes, so this is the findings of fact for the Henry Farrar, the garage that was going to be a couple feet over regulation. So those findings of facts are in your G drive as well, if you want to take a look at those. But we'll just have you sign these at the end if you approve of them. But as far as I know, there were no conditions that went with that, and it was given unanimous approval.
Okay. Move on to new business. V 06/18/2024-01.
Do you have to vote to adopt those?
I believe we do.
Jeff, do we have to vote to adopt findings of fact?
Yes, once you've determined exactly what they are, the board should vote to adopt them as they're presented or written.
Okay.
Which is what's in there.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Any discussion?
No, there weren't any
Okay.
conditions.
Yeah,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Rob, do you have a vote?
I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right. Opposed? All right. Motion carries.
Oh.
All right. On to new business. V 06/18/2024-01 662 State Street.
Okay, so this is a variance application for a couple different variances. I'll start with the property, kind of go through it, and then let you talk with the petitioner before we go into analysis. So the property is located right here in this yellow outline at the corner of Heritage Way and State Street. It's about 2.6 acres. You can see it right there. Rosegate Drive is going to be one of the new roads built here. That's the east-west, and then the north-south is Serenity Drive. Here's the roundabout, Heritage Way, State Street, Starbucks. So this parcel is part of a multi-phase kind of development with this larger parcel behind it. This is the Kulkarni property. I don't show it on here because in my mapping system, unless there's parcels, it's hard to put in the different zoning designations, but it has 3 different zoning designations for commercial, residential, and light industrial. So the petitioner and owner bought this property with the intent to develop a gas station, convenience store, a fast food style restaurant, maybe a liquor store. These are all kind of small general retail uses, which are all permitted in RGB zoning. So you can have a multi-tenant store, you could have a single tenant store. It's kind of up to the owner. So this is a quadruple frontage lot. Like I said earlier, there's State Street at the south and Serenity Drive on the east, Rosegate on the north, and North Heritage Way on the west there. I'll try. Okay. So the requested variance from the petitioner, like I said, there are 4 here. So one of them is a 50-foot setback here off of Heritage Way, as opposed to our required 75 feet, since this is an arterial roadway. State Street is also an arterial roadway, but they're only asking for the western property line, only to about this point to be 50 feet. They would like to have 3 driveway widths that are greater than our allowed maximum, which is 30 feet. These would be 2 60-foot driveways and a 45. And they also are asking for a 3rd driveway cut here that is channelized for right end only. And then that 3rd cut is also only accessible off of an arterial. So keep in mind, from what we've talked with the petitioner, is that the first entrance here, Rose Gate will be built by the property owner behind here, JDK Kids, Mr. Kulkarni, up until the driveway cut, wherever that is, as far as spacing goes, which as far as I can tell, this is compliant from Heritage Way. And then the property owner is responsible for building Serenity Drive up to this point. Now, the property next door and this intersection and the rest of Serenity and Rose Gate is the responsibility of this property owner, whoever that might be, or the current property owner, Mr. Kulkarni, if he decides to do that. So I just wanted to add that in here. So next, I'm going to go through this is from the traffic study that was done, and it was done in compliance with our access management control ordinance with the AOCL. So this shows, and it's a little difficult to see on here because I've got the legend at the bottom, but the green is passenger vehicle, the purpley pink color is garbage and delivery truck, and then the reddish color is fuel trucks. So this is their flow through the site, utilizing this right turn only here, as well as this being not truck accessible. This is only for passenger vehicles or drive-through, things of that nature. So I'll let Aaron and Shelby get a little more into this, but I just want to kind of introduce the site to you. And then this is what they also did was show what the fuel truck, or I guess it could really be any traffic, what that flow through the site would look like without this right turn. And then this is a snippet from the traffic study that shows counts, hourly counts, the estimated per week, and then the style. So you see here, you've got delivery trucks for retail, delivery trucks for fast food, delivery trucks for gas station, things like that. So if you'd like, I can turn it over to Aaron and Shelby, who are here representing the petition, to any questions you might have as far as what this goes through, and then we can go to site or staff analysis. Scott's also here if you have any questions for him.
Okay, sounds good.
Good morning. My name's Aaron Carl. It's pretty straightforward on what she was talking about with the ones that we were asking for. As far as the fuel trucks, the biggest reason we want the ride-in only off of Heritage Way is to keep the fuel trucks so that they're not making a loop going around the gas tank or the pumps as they're coming to deliver. They can come in from Heritage Way, drive straight through the site and exit and not cross a lot of pedestrian traffic. Just making it a little bit safer for everybody. Same thing with the delivery trucks. You know, they'll be coming in off of Serenity Drive, going around the building. There's 2 areas designated for delivery trucks to park, leaving the drive-through lane open for the fast food restaurant for whatever they can get in there. We don't have anybody scheduled. We don't know who will be that fast food restaurant, but we got some delivery areas for parking so that, you know, it keeps traffic flowing. Same thing, you can see the area for the fuel truck to park, allowing traffic to be on both sides of it and not be blocked in if they pull in. And the reason for like the driveways to be wider than they are is for the trucks to safely turn in and out of the facility. Otherwise, with the smaller roads, it's going to be hard for those trucks to actually make it in and out without cutting them into other lanes. So we're trying to make things as safe as possible. The only other one is making the building setback 50 foot rather than 75 foot. We talked about rotating the store the other way. I know Hannah didn't want it. It doesn't go with the ordinance, so otherwise we'd have to ask for that too. So we took the store and rotated it to the orientation to face State Street. And when we did that, it's going out past the setback. So there's plenty of clear space for it's not going to be a hindrance on traffic going up to the intersection there at Rose Gate or at Heritage, where they won't be able to see around it. With the roundabout down at the bottom, that's also not going to be any issue. So So we're just looking for those items, and those are the reasons why we're looking.
Questions from Petitioner?
Question about, I appreciate where you're coming from as far as the truck traffic. What about pedestrian traffic? Bicycles, what, where they have to go across, I assume these driveway cuts, is that, how do you plan to address that?
We haven't got that far yet, but we'll end up, I honestly, I completely forgot about it because we're focused on this part of it. But there will be room for them up around the building. They'll use the sidewalks to access it. We'll have an access. That's a good question.
Is that the blue?
The blue is.
There's a sidewalk.
Okay.
Sidewalk, yeah.
So you'll have cross patch
Crosses,
markings.
yeah.
Yeah,
The drives.
we'll have all that taken care of.
As far as signage, because we know people just, aside for on Heritage with that angled that way, but the others, what kind of signage will there be? You want the service trucks entering, but well, I'm assuming other cars and vehicles will be using that side too.
So passenger vehicles will be able to use all three access points.
Okay,
As you can see up top here, if they use Rose Gate, they'll have to come around the drive-through traffic, which shouldn't be an issue. We made the lane a little wider than it needs to be for that reason. And then as it comes in off of Heritage Way, it can go straight up to the pumps or to a parking stall. Same thing off of Serenity. But the passenger vehicles are going to be able to access all of those points. The delivery trucks are going to be coming in off of Serenity. And as far as that goes, I've worked with several other stores like similar to this. You hire someone to bring you fuel. You give them directions on how to access your site. So they should be following those points. Same thing with garbage trucks. We've got the garbage trucks that come in. We got the dumpster pad at the northeast corner of the site. So they come in just like the delivery trucks. Usually they can schedule those like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So you're not gonna have a lot of traffic when those come in. So, but I do need to address the bicycle stuff. I just haven't got to that point yet.
Do you anticipate 24/7 operation?
I would have to ask the owner on that, but I believe that's his intent was 24/7. At least for the gas station.
so the footprint on this, because it has a big, I'm assuming that's a retention pond there.
Yes.
I'm thinking about like the surface.
The impervious?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that Denise had discussed that with you.
Yeah, we're
that
under the
You were
60%.
under
Okay.
60%.
Because that front is pretty large.
Yeah.
And it'll be a dry detention basin. So it'll be mobile and
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think I'm a little bit hung up on, they're gonna appreciate your plans for the larger truck traffic, the pedestrian points that I mentioned, golf carts, bicycles.
Mhm.
I anticipate probably gonna get more growth in the area. I think we need to have an overall focus, and we gotta work on that.
Mhm.
As far as golf cart friendly, that's the case, that's that goal. No, basically we plan to get a trail going up in that neck of the woods from town. I think you're gonna see more if that develops, and probably will at some point in time.
Yes.
I think you'll see more of that type of foot traffic, bicycle, golf cart traffic. And
Even walking.
yeah, even walking, I
That's
think you
the
mix that with semis and that I think we need to be careful on the plan about how we, you need to have
well, and that's why
egress to your property and
I completely forgot them, but the Three Rivers and the Starbucks and then the third site on the other side of the road, they all have bicycle parking.
right.
On this one here, the most logical place to put it the main trail is going to be out along Heritage Way. If you put a bicycle rack to the east, to the west side of that, would only have drive-through traffic and passenger vehicles coming through there, you're gonna have, you know, the drive-through traffic's gonna stop on a regular basis, that would be the safest place to put it.
I see on the rack, I think you probably get that figured out, but I'm thinking the, just the, pedestrian traffic to and fro.
I'm thinking of that too on, say they're coming from Old Town and heading west. How would they cross over Serenity? Are we gonna have crossing walk? And this is more for our staff, I apologize.
No, I mean, it'll be a completely interconnected sidewalk area, you know.
Even like
Anything that develops
lights.
has to have sidewalk and or trail depending on the roadway style. It's just, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my analysis if you'd like.
Okay.
But I do address that.
And on here, there are crosswalks across every drive, and across
Mhm.
Serenity Drive.
I see that. It's just once it's
Yeah.
heavy traffic, it really doesn't mean anything unless you can have the traffic stopped. We've seen it in other places, even down here at this corner now. We don't have a light. We only have the light down here.
Well, on this crosswalk on Serenity, which, so we're not in charge of the crosswalk on Roadgate, that'll be on the other developer. But the crosswalk on Serenity, we pulled it back away from the intersection on purpose for that reason.
Okay.
And it's a right in, right out only, so people are going to have to at least slow down for that area.
I think that's my biggest concern is connectivity
Yeah. Yeah, might
and
as
the
well.
flow.
Mm.
Not so much, some of the other stuff that has been presented.
The other day, part of that, you try to keep the small town feel, but you're gonna get growth, certainly understand that, and you seek that out to some degree. Make it pedestrian user friendly with a big focus on pedestrian, traffic, golf cart, et cetera, safety.
Absolutely.
And,
Mobile
that's
scooters
gonna be a challenge, yeah.
as those increase.
Well, if you'd like, if there's nothing else for Aaron or Shelby, I can go into our staff analysis.
Yeah,
Okay.
If you'd like,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then you also have the, traffic study in there. It's called Gold
Mhm.
Star
Mhm.
Petroleum. It's in the, folder specifically for that. So function of planning staff, as we know, is to analyze the petition against our approved plans, our relevant ordinances, any existing conditions or variances placed upon a site to present our facts and analysis. So based on the analysis, we have the following comments. So I categorize them here based on variance. So the first one being the setback variance, the one on the westernmost property line, does not pose an endangerment to public safety. In our opinion, it'll also have a really sufficient landscape buffer there too. It could also be extended, just noticing it could be extended for the entire western property line if you wanted to. Because I don't think that's a huge issue there, especially because a large majority of it is gonna be that detention pond or retention pond. But that's up to the owner if they wanted to do that. As far as the widths of the three driveways all being over our allowed maximum, we looked at this and specifically the layout that we have in the AMCO for high commercial or high use commercial is laid out a little bit differently, and those are proven to be very effective as far as flow through site. I've got a graphic of it here. These are the two examples. There we go. So this is a typical high use commercial driveway. The first one is split with a little landscape median, but it has one big point of ingress and two points of egress. Or you can have a one-way, and those can be anywhere between 16 and 30 feet, but they're one way in, one way out. So in our opinion, these are sufficient enough to be able to use where you wouldn't, and the radiuses can also change on these as well. For commercial, the minimum I believe is 25. So you can make them larger than that if you'd like. But staff feels that the, ask on the widths is, it does not warrant deviation from the standard.
So does the standard specify a maximum?
It says between, on these, 37 and 39 feet. On a regular commercial, it just says 30. Or are you talking about radius?
Well, because you add all these dimensions up and you get 49,
I think it's not counting the landscape.
the green.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what it is? It doesn't really say that's what it is.
Yeah. So 4 to 10 foot landscaping. The way it's described in here, it does describe.
Okay.
So it's grass or bushes or whatever we like to. So that I'm assuming that's not counted because it's not actually something to drive on.
Sure.
So. Cause yeah, I saw that too. Okay, so that's the points we had for driveway width. Now, for the third access point, that right-in only western driveway, as well as the access being onto an arterial, we did have a lot of concerns with that. The first and foremost being that there is a quadruple frontage there. Excuse me. But the Rose Gate and Serenity only being built up to those certain driveways were part of the, purchase agreement with that property. So this was a known factor that this was going to be the only points of access for this property. We're going to be on those local roadways. Now, I don't know if it was in there that, access onto Heritage would be limited or unattainable. But that was the way I understood it to be, that would be the points of access would be off of our local roadways. So to us, then that proposed deviation from that is a self-created hardship because it was purchased in that condition, knowing that's how the road. The annual average daily traffic and the traffic study does reveal that the traffic volume in the next 10 years is going to increase. We know that there's going to be a large multifamily development behind this, a very large one, and then some light industrial north of that. But what it's not showing is peak hour traffic. There is hour traffic in there, but the peak hour traffic does not support more than 2 access points. I certainly think 2 access points is reasonable for use like this, especially when with multi-tenants. But 3, and especially that third one being on an arterial, doesn't really fit with our plans. So the other concern we had was the minimum access point separation from the roundabout. That roundabout is going to be expanded at some point. It needs another lane in that area. So while right now it does meet that 125-foot minimum we're using right in, right out because we don't have a right in only measurement from an intersection. It's about 144 feet right now. But again, 125 is a minimum. It's, kind of based on projected traffic flow, the uses that are going to be in the area, et cetera. And if that expands, it could change that. There's also a projected taper that would be on that right lane, right here, to go in there, which of course is fine. But again, that spacing from that intersection, we don't know if that is going to be a safety issue. It also brings that taper really close to a pedestrian walkway. We're trying to separate those as much as possible on arterial roadways, as fit. And our street standard does lay out exactly how an arterial should look. It should have 10 foot of trail here, 9 foot of grass, this much roadway, so on and so forth. So I'm seeing some issues here with that spacing up against the pedestrian. The other thing we have here, like, Bob, you had mentioned, was the pedestrian bicycle experience. Along arterials, you're really only supposed to have cuts for roadways. You're not supposed to have cuts for private parcels. There's a hierarchy when it comes to those larger roadways. You're supposed to go down in class. So this goes from Heritage Way being an arterial to Rose Gate being a local to then a cut off, which is the most appropriate way and safe way to do things. And that's what our AMCO really touts, is that there has to retain that hierarchy. And then the last thing I've got, is the direct property access onto the arterial roadway. In all of our documents is so highly discouraged unless there's absolutely nothing else you can do. Which we have some situations in town, usually in the older areas where there is just no other way to access it right now. Nobody's gonna build a road. You have to do what you have to do until there's a better option. And in this case, since there are 2 local roadways available, we believe that's where the access should be placed. And allowing those direct cuts, even though it is a right-in only, and it's by far the lowest classification of driveway, it's still on an arterial, it's still on a road that's gonna grow, or a roundabout that's gonna grow. And there's gonna be a lot of pedestrian traffic here with the multifamily units that are gonna go in on both the east and the west, north of this site. So setting that precedent of allowing a cut onto an arterial just in staff opinion doesn't flow with our ordinances and plans. So that's kind of what we have for this site. Crossing those large driveways does interrupt the pedestrian experience and the bicycle experience. Even though this is a gas station, we have to have those things, you know, we are growing. They need to be able to have truck delivery and cars be able to access them, but I'm just not seeing a need for a few of these asks.
So the preferred, I guess, we've got 3 things. So the setback, the entrances, and the extra entrance. So I guess we'll just start with discussing the setback.
Okay, yeah.
You go that. And we can.
Okay, let me
we
get
can-
to your bullet points that you have to go through.
Sure.
So again, this is this is in the AMCO, it's in that Google Drive too, I forget what page it's on now. So these 5 bullet points are what you have to go through for every variance to assure that they fit within the findings of fact.
All right, so we'll discuss these 5 bullet points with regards to the reduced setback of 50 feet on Heritage Way. All right, so the first one is the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. I mean, as discussed, it doesn't really affect traffic or site visibility or anything. Is there any discussion on that item?
I don't have discussion on that
Yeah,
item.
I would agree with that, but there again, the, kind of hung up on the, small town feel, pedestrian, focus.
Yeah.
You know, that, and this kind of takes away from that, understand that growth. Multi-family coming in here probably at some point behind that, so you're gonna have, a lot more vehicle traffic time goes on. But still, I guess I'm somewhat hung up on the, trying to retain a focus on golf cart friendly, et cetera. All that, which you're seeing more and more golf carts all over the place. People love those things.
Yeah.
And, that they be, have a significant value in development, in all of development as we go forward with, you're not gonna stop growth, don't wanna stop growth, not the objective, but that we do it right, that we do make it, pedestrian user friendly.
I do think though, if you're looking at setbacks as far as that goes, typically when you have something a little closer to the lot line, it does enhance the pedestrian experience because typically you'll see kind of a more auto-centric is the big old seat parking and then the building. So if you actually bring something a little closer to the road, it kind of enhances that a little bit. And I know we're working on the overlay ordinance that kind of addresses things like that. It's not in place yet. But it would kind of look at how to create and keep that pedestrian or small town experience, but still being, you know, open to the growth and things like that. So I think to address your concern with the setbacks specifically, it might actually help that as far as kind of making it feel not so far, you know, far away, big old structure.
All right, so I think we can conclude that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The second item, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner.
Well, is that in a nutshell or addressing each different request?
Well, I
So
think
we're going one by one.
yeah, I think we need to treat them separately.
We just keep it.
Well, I do think that
We're just talking about this in relation to setback only, the setback ask.
Just for setback.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll go
Okay.
through each ask and do
Gotcha.
these 5 points.
So yeah, I don't see how. I mean, 75 to 50
Yeah.
doesn't affect the other.
And
property.
everything
wouldn't-
around it is
it
kind of
wouldn't.
similar to that right now anyway. I think Starbucks is about 45, or the bank is about 45-ish feet, Wolfie's is about 50 feet, so.
Okay.
So we're good on number 2. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. So this is kind of a small bounded parcel by all the streets.
Mhm.
So we, if we want that building to face the main road, it
Mhm.
doesn't fit.
Mhm.
So I think that satisfies item 3. Item 4, the variance granted is the minimum necessary. I didn't see a dimension. Is the building right at 50 or close to it?
50 and a half.
So it is, that makes it the minimum then,
Okay.
item 4. And then the last one is the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner of the property.
I don't think it does.
No.
Have you had any comments from adjoining property owners?
Nope. Or anyone else within the area either. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't know if this is possible, but did you want that to run the whole length of the west or just that little section?
Doesn't matter, as long as it's in that section.
Okay. Can they do that, Jeff?
Or
I couldn't quite make it out, Hannah. Could that be repeated?
So they're only asking for a variance and setback on kind of one section of the property, or at least that's how I read it, so that the building could fit in, but keep it 75 on the other part of the western property line. Can we just make it the entire western property line, or is that changing too much?
I think you're at that point, you've got a noticing problem because you didn't notice that you can't expand the request.
Just try and make it easy.
No, I get it, but I don't want somebody to come in late and say, hey, I wasn't aware of this, or I would have been there to complain. I know that's incredibly unlikely, but
Yeah. Okay.
sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. I just want to clarify. So it
So-
should be as presented.
So I guess I'll entertain a motion to adopt the findings of fact as discussed and allow 50-foot building line setback for the primary structure for west property line.
Are we approving these through each one?
Yeah, there's 3 items, so let's do them separate.
I make a motion to approve the setback
Second.
as discussed.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to the second item. This is the driveway width variance.
This is again for all 3, being larger than our maximum commercial size driveway cut.
So like we look at this 60 foot of concrete or pavement, whatever, that's what they're asking for. But in our access management and control ordinance, we would have two 12-foot egress lanes and a 15-foot inbound with a median. So that would be the staff preference, is to have like a pedestrian refuge there in the middle.
It could be something like that. Or if they wanted to do the one-ways as well, that's an option.
Oh, is that the second image?
Yeah.
So each one-way drive would be between 16 and 30 feet.
Or it can just be 30 feet wide with a variety of radius, whatever works best for truck motions. It doesn't necessarily have to be as big as the one with the landscape median if they need to, but it does offer the biggest amount of space to do it that way. But it could just be 30 feet wide with one in the middle. And so, sorry. So it would be, these 2 are proposed to be 60, and then the one way is 45.
And that's just with trying to turn right out of there. the arrow really ought to be shifted up a little bit, and that right turn lane needs to be a lot wider.
The right turn onto Serenity
Yeah,
for trucks.
and because if you take a 38-foot tanker truck, you know, the rough side of the fuel truck, the tank on it, plus the cab, you're looking at about 50-foot truck, trying to make that turn. And so the idea was that right turn lane was the only one that's actually bigger by a lot. I mean, we did spread them out evenly on this drawing, but that truck cannot make that right turn if it doesn't have that width. And to have a clear lane coming in the 12 feet.
So then can it just go left and then turn left onto Heritage Way and go through the roundabout?
But they're not building that part of the road. Start with.
That's not a problem.
I don't know.
It's not, you bought it this way. So
I-
knowing that that's how it would be, you know, I'm not trying to quash it, but
No.
our original layout of this with the secondary flat, you know, as you know, it's not on the town to coordinate when and how those roads are built or who does them, but we base site access off of that, you know, so.
So are you building any of Heritage Way? Or is it just the,
So,
Street is building, or the JDK Kids is building Heritage Way and then the stub.
before this goes in?
yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
it's part of their
Here, hold my
purchase
pointer.
there.
up to the east side of your northern
So,
entrance.
so they're building everything up through here and then everything to where the yellow pillar changes.
Gotcha, okay.
And then we're contracted on our purchase agreement to go up there, and then from what I was told by JD Kids, lot 1 is supposed to build that.
Finish the intersection.
And I'll be honest with you, Mike Jazz Beer has even talked about if we have to do that, if there's a way that he can build it and get paid back, he would be okay with that. He just needs to make sure that's all in writing.
Yeah,
But-
absolutely.
But there's a lot of
Yeah.
talking to do to get that to happen, because that's not a cheap expense. And then we gotta do stormwater and everything else with it. So,
Sure. I mean, it seems like the typical configuration would be sufficient.
Or the high use.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at,
Yeah.
those details you have.
Right.
And like, it's just a lot of pavement for pedestrians to get across.
Yeah.
To see if paving to be concerned, but
and then on the right turn only off of Heritage,
Oh.
that's actually calculated to use the taper and be all the way up and away from that. Keep the semi off of the sidewalk and then be able to basically make a U-turn and come back into because the travel path for that truck would actually be. Cause we're talking about even building some of this. When we calculated it, we came up here like this, and then it comes down, and then it actually comes almost all the way in here, and then comes over to that. So,
so that yellow hatching is additional pavement being added to Heritage Way? Is that
like, that's,
The yellow.
yeah,
the light yellow?
that's the future design.
I mean, even south of there, that yellow,
Yes, that's,
Yeah, here.
additional pavement.
this is, when
Yeah.
I'm talking to the town, they talked about wanting to add another lane over
Okay.
here. And so we showed the other lane, plus we showed the taper that we would have coming into there. And as far as the sidewalk goes here, we did squeeze it down as tight, or tighter than what's allowed. But that's also a point that we were gonna talk about too, is where, you know, that can always be something where we can dedicate part of the property and push that over and get it out of the way.
But that only is adding more turns, not the full radius of a roundabout. So if that whole roundabout expands, what does that look like?
So-
Well,
Spacing.
We've only looked at, and Preston, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this leg is the only one right now that doesn't have a double lane. All the others do. So that's what we've looked at expanding first, because it wasn't built large enough from what I've been told.
But the,
So this would be.
but at the turn, it's single.
Right, yeah, right now. Yes.
So what she's saying is, like, so if you look down here, and then all the other ones are built this way too. This has a lane coming up that goes this way and a lane that goes that way, so it's already dual lane.
But I'm well, dual lane as the split, but I'm talking around the entire circumference.
Yeah, that would be on us, I mean, and that would be something way down the road, because that would be a huge undertaking.
But because we
that's-
are, I mean, already, this,
It's possible though, for sure.
the sidewalk is pretty close to that additional merge lane.
Here,
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a concern with that. I do,
Are you talking about this area here or this area up here?
well, all of it.
Cause this
I mean,
here's
it's
got
pretty
about a
tight.
10-foot separation. And then
But
then
then-
it gets wider over here.
But then if this roundabout becomes,
right.
I'll say a
way.
double, the full circumference, then that really would push everything and make it tight.
And with the pond being up here though, you have a lot of room that we can, this pond is drawn way larger than it needs to be for this site. That's an area that you could very easily work with. And we left it open partly for that reason.
And then, this is Heritage Way is a boulevard, that's 4 lanes plus a median.
Correct.
And then you're adding then, I'll say a potential other lane that just goes up to
Right, the taper. you
a
can take-
presented entrance.
Well, I think this taper's probably, I think our AMCO, depending on the roadway, says that taper could be anywhere from 75 to 225 feet, but based on that.
But that's a
This-
large road to add that. Without any possible expansion of the roundabout.
Well, it seems like we would need to know, like, if we have to enlarge the roundabout, at least particularly on one side there, make it 2-lane. It looks like prior to approve on this, we should have more specifics on what the proposal for that is. So that we're talking about, you can make the pond smaller, but then you get into stormwater retention. How much smaller can that be made? We're talking about some things here, we don't have the yardage
So
yet,
the
what that is.
The future
Which
setbacks.
space it is, that we would need
So-
for that.
When we first started talking about the site in general, when it was just being platted, we did discuss how much right of way we would need from Sri when he owned this whole area. To get another lane in the roundabout, but we didn't talk more than that. So I would say that since the right of way has been dedicated for this parcel, there's enough for this lane, but as far as anything more than that, I do not know, and I don't really know how we would.
The
I mean,
one-
that'd be a really big project for us to undertake to figure out exactly what that would look like as far as an engineer taking a look at it. But what I do see, even, to your point, Jenny, with the expansion of just even that single lane and having an entrance, it could cause some issues with coming off the roundabout.
I just don't want to approve something today that we know it could make for things very crowded and tight. Because we know we're gonna need to expand that. That's the point.
Yeah.
And I don't think at some point that far, not with the way traffic's coming into town.
I'll defer to a resident traffic expert.
And as far as that goes, we did discuss this lane here. What we didn't discuss was the taper lane.
Mhm.
And we put the taper lane in there just because of the safety factor of getting that semi as pulling in out of the traffic. As far as that goes, we could take this whole sidewalk and shift it over. And we could even do something along the lines of taking the sidewalk and rerouting it around the other side so that people aren't crossing that lane. I mean, quite honestly, that's probably where the most traffic would come into the site. That, the lane to the north, is gonna have probably the least amount of traffic. And then the east entrance is probably gonna have the second most, but it's,
The lane to the north eventually will have a lot. If that is built out, if Heritage Way eventually connects up to Old 132. People will be then coming from the north to the south, so that little jaunt change of southerly. So I do see that north becoming busier too.
I would imagine too that even though it is a right-in only, if that's where most of the traffic is going to be, we would rather have more traffic on Rosegate where people are probably gonna be going slower and stopping motion anyway, as opposed to coming out of a roundabout. I feel like that's a prime place for fender benders, that's where 90% of your traffic's gonna go. So if that's not there, they will figure out a way to get into the site, whether it's the north, or when that's built, they come around and go down Serenity. But that flow will shift if that's not there.
For traffic going across the site, and I understand both sides of this, but for traffic going across the site, I'd rather see this here and then that one shrunk down and made one way and an exit only. And then that would force everybody to go around the other way. And it would force only 2 entrance points so that the traffic flow would be better.
I mean, are you expecting a lot of traffic to really cross across here? I mean, you've got parking in both areas, so doesn't that kind of negate any flow through the site? Because you cross pedestrians regardless.
Well, you're gonna have less people parking at the down away from the store. I mean, most of your parking is gonna be at the gas pumps and at the store.
Right, so there's not gonna be a lot of cross traffic with pedestrians and the risk of them getting hit by vehicles, correct? Because they're not walking through where cars are going. They're parking their vehicle going in, or they're parking at the gas pump and walking across 2-lane traffic.
Right.
So I think either way you snap it, you're gonna still
But
have that risk regardless. We don't think it's-
But let's, so we're on item 2, which is the width of the entrances. So I think we should, with that in mind, go through the 5 bullet points.
That's fine.
Right, regard to the width of the entrances, so. I mean, the concern with the large entrances, it's a large crossing for pedestrians. And, if you read through the staff analysis here, the high-use commercial driveways in our ordinance support safe and efficient traffic flow and can handle truck traffic. So staff feels that there's no warrant to deviate from the standard.
So let me just remind you, if you find one of these findings of fact, I think that does not adhere to how you think the variance should be. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. It kind of ends at that because I think you have to have all 5.
It's all or nothing, right?
Yeah. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
you have to make findings on all 5. If you fail on any of the 5, you're out. It has to be denied based on that, based on the failure to hit one or more of the 5.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
The high-use commercial driveways work, then I don't see how the strict application of the terms result in practical difficulties with the property.
And I've looked at some other gas stations and they're about 40 feet wide. They don't have the median, but I think ours is 37 to 39, depending on how large you want to make the lanes. And I mean, I'm not talked to the owners or anything like that, but they've been around for a while with those existing sizes and they seem to function just fine.
Yeah.
I agree. About the strict application, it doesn't result in practical difficulties.
Well, and trying to make the tight right is a self-imposed hardship because the road's not there. So I don't know if the petitioner wants to make any additional presentation before we vote on this one. Do you have any other input?
As far as the what's on the ordinance for the entrance, does it have to have an island?
Let me check. It might be able to just be striped, but
Cause I just did one similar that NDOT wouldn't allow the island because the truck could turn into the island.
yeah, let me take a look at it.
Or it could be
This-
could be mountable and, you know, like the roundabout has
Oh.
raised,
Mhm.
mountable,
Mm-hmm,
change the color
mm-hmm,
maybe to make it
mm-hmm.
traverse.
Yeah, I can look and see if it strictly has to be landscaped or if it can be something, just a median of some sort.
Cause if that's the case, then I'll have to talk about some way to figure out how to keep the rest of that road goes. So that,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah, let me check into it, see what the ordinance says.
So I guess we need to entertain a motion to for the second request, either to approve or deny. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes, Kyle, that is correct.
So we're denying as presented by petitioner or,
Right.
okay. I didn't know if
Because-
we stated it the opposite way of approving what staff has presented, but
I would
Yeah.
say-
Still have to make findings on all five and then deny if and when we find that the petitioner failed to meet one of the five criteria.
All right, so let's just go through the five. On the
Okay.
first one, you know, I think the large uninterrupted entrance could be a potential safety issue.
I agree.
Mhm, I would agree.
Item two, I think item two is met. I don't think that this really affects adjoining properties.
I could actually argue that one based on what gets built and if you have
Sets-
too large of a
Oh, yeah, true.
facing another, so it could, again,
Just don't know what's going on.
correct.
Item three, strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties. Yeah, I think using the higher use commercial driveways, you know, seems feasible, so I think that one fails. Number four, the variance granted is a minimum necessary. Well, if these smaller entrances work, then the 60-foot is not the minimum necessary.
Correct.
And then the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner, and kind of as we discussed with this future roadway that doesn't allow a left turn out of the eastern entrance. And that's kind of a self-imposed hardship.
Mhm.
So I guess based on those findings, I'll entertain a motion to either approve, deny, or continue.
I have one more question before you.
Sure.
On that east entrance, can I do, if I separate it, I can do a one in and a one out?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's how it says you can do one in, one out. But then that would be,
That would be considered as two, but then I'm also pushing space from State Road 38 or State Street. So
that's right, cause you need, what is it, 100, is it 200? From State Street?
I have to go back. and-
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head.
But is that one in, one out considered an entrance?
Yes,
Okay.
it is, yeah.
But it would just push the exit down like in line with the south edge of the parking lot. Where, so the tanker truck would go straight out.
Make that a lot safer.
Yeah, so if that would be considered one entrance and then, having the two entrances, I think the study has showed that was appropriate because they're on two separate roads. So you could still have the northern one, but then if you want to do this with your eastern one.
That's why we combined everything to one entrance, because we thought that would count as two entrances if we had an in and an out.
Okay, yeah, cause the way I understand this is, yeah, one driveway.
Yeah, the bottom picture is a driveway.
Yeah.
And so that would be an option.
Yeah.
I make a motion to deny based on, it not meeting kind of that litmus test of those, what, 4 of the 5, I think, right?
The driveway with variance.
Mhm.
Correct.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All right,
Do you have anything?
all right. Motion and a second. All those in favor of denying the second variance request, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the second request is denied. We'll move on to the third, which is the additional access point presented as a right-in driveway. Staff, I guess we've already talked about the staff analysis on this one.
Correct.
Mhm.
So I'm just gonna kind of hit the highlights here. It says the traffic study did not support more than 2 access points. Could create potential spacing issues in the future. Interrupts pedestrian bicycle safety. And provides a direct access onto an arterial, which is highly discouraged at multiple times in the UDO and access management control ordinance. And could potentially set a bad precedent for the future. So I guess we'll go through the 5 bullet points on the third request. So the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and welfare of the community. I think based on the discussion about the people coming off the roundabout and diving into that entrance with a pedestrian crossing there,
Mhm.
you know, that
There's a lot going on.
that presents a
It's pretty tight.
danger.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know that it meets that bullet point.
I don't think it
We'll
does.
go ahead
I
and go
agree
through
with
the other 4. The use and value of the area adjacent will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Setting a precedent for future properties, I guess, could potentially be an issue.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other discussion on the second item?
I don't think it
Yeah.
meets that.
The third one is the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. As we discussed, they've already got 2 access points on the perimeter street, so I think there's plenty of access to the site. You know, they have a circulation plan that works without that entrance. So the property is still usable without it. So I don't know that we meet the bar for that criteria.
I agree.
The variance granted is the minimum necessary. I'm not for sure how we would apply this to a third.
I think if it called for a third driveway, this would,
The traffic study.
yeah, that this would be the minimum size with style or location.
The lowest, the right end is the
Mhm.
lowest classification of
It is, yeah.
entrance,
Yeah.
but not warranted.
Correct.
And the 5th one is the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a foreigner or current owner. I don't know that there is a access issue or a hardship that needs to be corrected. It's more of a,
Because it's not developed.
yeah.
It's not correcting any.
So I don't think, you know, that criteria is met, but you know, based on the public safety. You know, not,
Yeah, first item.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's probably the big one.
Yeah, but it didn't meet most of these as we went through.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adopt our findings of fact and either approve, deny, or continue the third request, which is for a third access point onto the arterial.
I make a motion to deny the third access point onto the arterial based on our findings.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion on the motion?
Me.
Rob, do you have anything?
I do not.
All right, hearing none.
Just a technicality,
Sure.
there's 4 of them. One of them's for the driveway on an arterial, the other one's for a third driveway.
Oh, did she separate those out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if.
Okay.
I think they were separated out.
Okay.
So there's
If we want,
4.
We paid for 4 variances,
Okay.
so if
All right,
you're going
so-
to deny it or approve it, you might want to make sure you do one of those.
No, that's a good point. Okay, so,
So we're just, this is the third access point.
yeah. And then you can go through the same for the
Arterial,
arterial access.
sure.
Okay, so we need to specify the third access that's leading to the arterial. That's the one where,
Well, it's not the arterial,
or sorry,
third
just the
access.
third
third
access
access
point for the
in
site.
general. Okay,
So that's your motion.
so that's my motion.
Okay.
Yes, thanks.
And we have a second.
Have a second.
Any further discussion?
I don't think so, and we'll need Rob as well.
Okay, all right, hearing none, I'll, all those in favor of denying the third request, which is a third access point, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We'll move on to the fourth request, which is an access onto arterial. And so the direct access cuts onto arterial roadways are highly discouraged unless there's no other feasible alternative. The site has two other feasible alternatives that they're utilizing, so it seems unnecessary to provide an additional access to an arterial and sets a bad precedent. Let's go through the 5 bullet points. The first one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. I mean, just because you're accessing an arterial doesn't necessarily make it dangerous per se, I guess. So I guess that might be met potentially.
Would it just be in this situation though?
I guess if you apply it to this situation, that is a bad location for an access point, so maybe we should.
I think because it's a boulevard and the way
Close
that's
to the roundabout.
designed, yeah.
I mean, like we discussed in the third request, it does create kind of a dangerous situation, allowing that cut, so.
Because I do feel like we're reading these specific to
To
this.
this plan.
Yes,
All right, so in that case, it does not meet item number 1.
that's how I feel.
I would agree with that, yeah. Until we have more information on the future design of the roundabout,
Mhm.
that for me anyway, has a big impact on the property in general.
Yeah, I would tend to agree and probably take it a little further that any cut onto an arterial, there should have to be really no other way around it because you're creating such a terrible conflict point anytime you cut onto an arterial.
That's
Agreed.
why there's intersections and,
Hierarchy.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
Second item, the use and value of the adjacent area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. I mean, like we said, it creates a precedent that could potentially
Mhm,
create
it does.
all kinds of issues on this corridor, so that would definitely have a
Mhm.
negative
it's gonna have an
impact.
impact.
Third item, strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. There's already 2 access points on 2 other lower class perimeter streets, so I think,
It's self-imposed.
yeah, there's no practical difficulty involved. Number 4, the variance granted is the minimum necessary. This is an additional entrance that's not really warranted, so it's above and beyond the minimum
This
needed.
point.
Mhm.
Item 5, the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner of the property.
It's undeveloped, so I don't feel like there's any hardship to correct.
Yeah, I think that, but obviously, number 1 being the highest there, safety.
Correct.
If there's no further discussion on the 4th request, I will entertain a motion to adopt the findings of fact and either approve, deny, or continue the 4th request, which is for access onto arterial.
I'll make a motion to not approve the 4th request, access onto the arterial.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Second deny, second
Okay.
that.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of denying the 4th request, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion denied. Thank you.
All right,
On to the next one.
Josh, I will be quick.
V 06-18-2024-02, 459 East Water Street.
All right, so we've got a property here, zone single family residential large lot, it's that yellow, with the blue outline there. It is two contiguous parcels for combined 3.26 acres, and there's a 2-story historic house on here with a walkout basement, and it's used as a residential dwelling. So the petitioner, Josh Ring, is here this evening to answer any questions you might have. What he is asking for is a variance in accessory structure height from 15 feet to approximately 25 feet, or a detached garage. It would be in that northwest corner there. You can see the little outline. It's 45 by 49, and it will have a 16-foot driveway there. Let me see here. And it does fit in all of our setbacks necessary for both the roadway, the location on the lot in comparison to the primary structure, and then the setbacks from the rear and the side.
Just the height, that's all
Yes, it's just the height. So I've got some renderings of it here. So this is what you'd see from the street. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong. But this Water Street would be down here.
Yes.
Okay.
And this property had the barn that kind of fell down.
Yeah, two barns.
Two
One
barns.
fell down. One
Yeah.
was the fence.
Which
And-
was probably similar height. I can't, it's been a
I
while,
don't know, it was even higher. It's the one, the bank barn is the one that's gone.
because it was up on
On the
the
bank.
bank.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, is that the ramp? that's
Yes,
back
so
there?
this property originally had an
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
large
bank barn.
structure there,
That's
Um,
going away, by the way,
the rest of that,
the
yeah.
bank.
So that was taller than what your proposal is.
Sure.
And this still is subordinate to the primary.
I mean,
structure, right?
It had
Yes,
to be, it
is
was,
by, how much shorter is this than the house?
So the house is 34 feet tall, and it's actually gonna sit down 5 feet lower than the house. And I was drawing the grade as the grade shows on the east side of the property, but as I work backwards on the west side of the property. Like on
This
that
is the
top,
grade,
yeah,
right?
that right there, that
Right.
drops like 5 feet. It's a lot of, it drops a lot back
Yeah.
there. So it's actually gonna sit even lower than what it looks in the picture.
And as you know, it's surrounded by large amount of trees. Very healthy, older trees, and then rec and open space zoning across the street is RC zoning.
Mhm.
And is it gonna be finished kind of the same as the house?
Hopefully,
Materials?
yeah, hopefully, we'll see.
So that's the ask for the petitioner tonight is a variance in height to allow a larger garage than our maximum 15-foot allowance.
So from to the top of the fascia board is like 15 feet. So it's like a story and a half.
Like here?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, to like, yeah, no, so to go out to the front, go to your other way, right there. To the top of that is like 15.
Okay. And then you've got like a half-story attic kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I mean, we put those accessory dwelling limitations because we didn't want it to be larger than the primary. in
Correct.
this.
Yeah, it depends on the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
sure.
Yep.
How much ground do you have there, Josh?
3.5 acres.
3.5?
All right, so. Do you wanna go?
Do you want my analysis?
Yeah, let's
real quick?
go ahead and do that.
All right, so the function of planning staff is to analyze this petition against any approved relevant plans and ordinances, as well as existing conditions or variances placed on the site to present facts and analysis. So based on that analysis, staff has the following. The variance will not pose danger to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The setbacks, the bulk, the use, and the maximum impervious surface are met with the structure in place. It's, I would say it's approximately 3 to 5 feet less. What we talked about was it's gonna sit a lot longer, so that might not actually be correct. So bullet point number 4 there, matches the height of nearby structures and complements surrounding. It meets architecture standards of the UDO. Once Josh puts in for a building permit. The access point location driveway to close once new driveway to the west is complete. So is that, you're closing the eastern one when the western one is done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, like I had mentioned, it's surrounded by large trees on 3 sides and the rec and open space as well. Barnhart Field is next door. And then all Indiana building code will be checked for compliance with that building permits.
Any other input from the petitioner?
Yeah, I thought I'd already got my building permit for that, but it's okay.
Hmm.
It didn't, maybe the building permits for the addition. It's all-
I think that's what it was for.
There we go.
All right, we'll go through the 5 bullet points then. So the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community.
No.
Don't see a problem with that.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. It's heavily wooded, it's way back off the road, meets all the setbacks.
And
Mhm.
it's essentially replacing what was there.
Have you any comments about
The
the
barn,
park?
it, you know,
Any comments from anybody at the park?
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. And so the 15-foot accessory structure is set kind of low. And it just depends on the nature of the property, really.
Correct.
So
Yes.
trying to build a building 15-foot maximum height is,
And that might be something where if we get a lot of these, which it seems like we have, then that maybe planning commission goes back and looks at
Adjusts.
what that should be per zone
I-
instead of a blanket.
I think
Right.
that's
Mhm.
good, yeah, because it's really been our historic, which are all have that start off with the foundation because they have the full basements and then they're just large structures.
Mhm.
And that's really what's been presented, not the standard one level ranches that want something towering in the backyard. So I think that is something we need to see how many we've had.
Mhm.
so yeah, I think number 3 is met, it's building an accessory structure that low would be difficult. The variance granted is the minimum necessary, so you're asking for 25 feet?
Mhm.
And so what's the peak? Is that what the peak's gonna be?
Yeah, it's like 24.
Okay.
Alright.
So that is the minimum needed. Number 5, the variance granted does not correct a hardship caused by a former or current owner of the property. I don't think that one really applies, so. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the findings of fact and either approve, deny, or continue the request.
I
I
make a
make-
motion to approve the project and the finding of facts.
Motion, do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
I have a couple things if I could add,
Oh,
not to this, but
So do
just
we need to adjourn the meeting?
not,
do you want this on the record?
I would.
Okay.
Okay.
You-
I had asked
Thank
Denise,
you all.
thank you,
Thanks.
There you go.
if she could follow up and then follow up with our council regarding when we approve variances, making sure, say, and it has nothing to do with anything tonight. And I'm mainly concerned with, say, property or commercial property owners, when we make a variance approval, if they are in arrears by a few years or a year, in their property taxes, but yet we're approving a variance which involves, say, construction and, but then I don't know if we're being really responsible in approving that if they're in arrears, because at whatever point it could be up for public sale. And then we've approved this variance that is going to be halfway met or not met at all. So I feel like a little additional research into the Indiana code, or that could possibly be something that we pass as an ordinance. And I just, again, as we're starting to get different requests, I just feel like that's in the best interest. Giving a variance is going above and beyond what we typically allow in our standards. So I hope I'm making myself clear as to what I'm.
I'll get with Denise, actually, I think she's on here, we're gonna promote her to.
Yeah, I'll talk on that one too. They're outside of this public meeting, but there are some issues you brought up Jenny, that we have to be careful with.
Okay,
Primarily that variances are solely an issue of land use and are transferable from owner to owner. And but I'm not saying there's nothing we can do. We would just have to be careful.
it's just a bigger thought that I
Oh
don't,
no, it's a good thought. I'm not saying it's not.
you know, like a major construction project. I just want to make sure that we're making sound decisions with that. So we're not leaving things in disarray. Or they are essentially, but we've approved for that.
Sure.
That was my main thought.
Denise, did you want to comment at all? Oh, I gave you the night off.
She was only up till 4 in the morning, so she might have found
I
it.
know, I told her to take the night off and she didn't. You're muted. You could, there's an ask to unmute button if you hover over her name. Ask to unmute, okay, see it? Yeah. something like that. Okay, well, if she has anything, I will relay that and we'll talk about it on Thursday.
And then the second is, you know, out by the new Dollar General, or sorry, Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
When that was approved, we had mentioned sidewalk, public access, because that road in between where Anita's is, that was, and I get, had to be closed off. But we had mentioned sidewalks, and during that meeting, it was relayed, you know, it would follow the plans that are in place for our pedestrian plans, but there's nothing there. There's not even a sidewalk connecting. And I have multiple times seen someone with a walker on the edge of the road walking to get out
I thought we mentioned a connection to Rollins even.
Yeah. Well,
I
that
think
has
what
a
we had
sidewalk
talked
all
about
around.
was if that would be possible, but there's such a big topo change and that's NDOT's right of way that it wasn't gonna be possible with a sidewalk there. Now,
Not
and-
even further back on
even-
the property?
Even on, not necessarily out on the state road.
Yeah.
On the sides or the back.
so I think that's something we would have had to have required because it's not written in our code to have it that way.
Because it's on an island, so there is no pedestrian
And you have
access.
to have the property owners around.
Yeah, I thought it was discussed.
I did
agree with
too.
that. I think that it was discussed.
But not made it official.
I think
Yeah.
it's something we need to look at.
Yeah, and those are rare. I mean, we don't have a lot of instances like that because we don't have a lot of NDOT roads.
And that's
We also
what,
have to, even the standards we have, if they say, you're not putting a sidewalk in my right of way.
well, I get that, but on the back of the property, there's still room to connect it with
If the
Falls.
property owners
I always,
around them allow
Okay.
it, that's the big ticket, is that if they don't get along, then it's gonna be a sidewalk to nowhere, nothing, it's not gonna connect to anything. And maybe there's some grass or gravel in between, but it's still not safe to get through, so. I mean, we can definitely do that, it's just that all property owners have to be able to play ball.
I feel like it's
That's easier.
something that
If
needs
we
on.
have, if we look at like, the property that's gonna be next to Wolfies in between the roundabout and Wolfies, those 3 lots that'll be placed there, so planted there, excuse me. That'll have to have kind of an entire site access plan.
Interconnected, yeah.
And Aaron worked on actually the Starbucks and the bank. You notice there's an entire sidewalk and an interior circulation plan on that. That's the norm. This is an island, you're right. But I think unless it was a condition on that where it connected to a stub or something and then neighboring properties decided they wanted to actually connect and do something about it. That's one of those situations where it just wasn't.
Well, they're not. We would need to be in lead of that discussion.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we need to do.
Yeah. I mean, we have. on.
I just don't want it lost. And what we're trying to prevent is having these islands. We want that connectivity and even ADA. We don't have a lot of electric scooters. But I certainly don't want someone off the side of the or a large road.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what I saw with the lady with her walker multiple times. And that's a grocery store too. So, you know, you want access to people need access to groceries.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was my
Marty, in with
two.
ADA compliance, all that, 'cause that's a good conversation.
Yeah.
Cover that on ADA compliance, like one with a walker. Scooters, that kind of thing. You want those folks to feel welcome to go to the Dollar Tree or Dollar General, wherever you are
Certainly, yeah.
out there. I recognize state highway there, but it does seem like something needs to be worked out. So come one, come all on that, and be in compliance with ADA, that those folks have access to the property. That's a new property.
Mhm.
And the Dollar Tree is brand new. Dollar General's not that old, but there's nothing out there. We got,
Yeah, it's only within the site itself.
You drive in park.
Yeah.
and it's
So you
accessible.
drive and park, get out, go up the ramp,
Mhm.
and that's it, that's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. But it seems like.
Especially
your
with its
questions,
location to everything
that's
around
yeah,
it. It's
should be
not.
connected there. So passion.
It's not a hard request, and I just feel like we need to do some homework on that and our due diligence and how to make that happen. Because it's not only the ADA for their safety, but it's also the safety of all these drivers too. Because yeah, especially when the sun goes down or the sun's in your face and someone's barely off the side of the road trying to get out there. To me, these things are what we're here for.
Well, luckily we don't have a lot of infill. So
No, we don't.
True.
it's kind of a one-off.
Fort Wayne actually has a policy, and they have an ordinance where you have to place a sidewalk out front, and it has to have ADA access from the sidewalk to the building. So it's not we do it all the time.
But as far as if you place it there and getting a property owner around you to connect to it or allow you to put something through their parking lot, like cross access, something like that, but specifically for pedestrians at an ADA compliant level.
But it depends if you're in the right of way or not.
Yeah.
But so NDOT allows Fort Wayne to put sidewalks in their right of way, but then you also have to go back, because if your roadway is an older roadway and the slope on the roadway does not meet ADA compliance, you can put a sidewalk in that is not ADA compliant. You don't
You can
have
go
to.
in like a 4-foot sidewalk?
Well, you can put it in and matches the slope of the road.
Yeah, they're
There's an
grandfathered.
exemption.
No, so Winona Lake, we've got one, I'm town engineer there. We've got one that actually goes into the park and kind of serpentines around and goes through some of their features. They've got a waterfall area. We have a bridge that goes over the waterfall, so I took the walk and kind of serpentines around and made a nice walk that they can be compliant.
Yeah.
And anything over 6 inches of rise has to have a handrail if you're above the 2% cross or the 2% slope. So what we do a lot of times is we'll do 6 inches of rise over 7 feet, which is longer than it could be, and then do a landing area. And we just did that the other day to eliminate handrails on a commercial property. So there's a lot of ways to make it work. Even if the roadway is not ADA compliant and you want to put the sidewalk in, there's some things that you can do. And you can put a ramp with a handrail. You can go up 30 inches at a time and inflate and meet grade. So.
Very interesting.
Any other discussion?
That was my only two extra items.
Yeah, let me give it to Denise and Jeff.
Good comments on that. I would agree with you. But it seems like we should begin that conversation, see how we get some of these things done.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Meeting adjourned.
All right.